People love winter stories because they're safe on the inside. But a blizzard isn't a postcard. A blizzard is the world getting erased while you're still standing in it. And when the world goes blank like that, some things stop pretending to be impossible. That's why, years later, the boy never called it a nightmare. He called it the night the snowman chased him. Because nightmare ends when you wake up. This didn't. He was 12, restless in a way adults don't take seriously, like boredom could never be dangerous. The snow started before dinner, soft at first. His mom watched the weather and frowned without saying why. His dad said it would blow over. By midnight, the wind had turned mean. It shoved snow against the house hard enough to make the window shiver. The street light outside their living room looked like it was shining through milk. His parents went to bed early. Snow days made grown-ups tired. He lay awake listening to the blizzard chew on the neighborhood. It wasn't quiet exactly. The wind screamed, but everything else was gone. No far-off cars, no barking dogs, no human world. That emptiness did something to him. It made the outside feel like a dare. Go to the tracks, the thought came, bright and stupid. The train tracks were only a few blocks away, a place kids treated like a border, safe in summer, unsettling in winter. He told himself he wouldn't go, and then he put on his boots anyway. Sneaking out wasn't hard. His parents trusted him. The back door wasn't locked like a vault. He eased it open and the cold hit him like a slap. The air burned. Snow moved sideways. Wind shoved at his coat like it wanted to steer him back inside. He stepped onto the porch and shut the door behind him. The click sounded tiny. It vanished into the storm like it had never happened. That was the first time he noticed it. The blizzard didn't just cover things. It erased them. He started walking. His boots made prints, but when he glanced back, the wind was already softening the edges, filling them in. It looked like the storm didn't want a trail, like it didn't want proof. 2 blocks in, he saw it. A snowman standing in a neighbor's yard. That alone would have been normal in December, except this wasn't snowman weather. This was get inside or disappear weather. Nobody built anything outside when the wind was cutting like this. It was tall and lopsided, unfinished in a way that made it seem abandoned mid-build. Coal eyes, a crooked mouth, one stick arm slightly raised. Not a wave, more like a pause. No scarf, no hat, no buttons. Just a face that looked too patient. He slowed, uneasy, then scolded himself. Snowmen don't move. He kept going. He didn't look back right away. But after a few steps, the feeling of being watched got heavy enough that he turned his head. The snowman was still there. He let out a shaky breath, almost laughed, and then he heard it. Under the wind, a soft, wet crunch. Not his boots. He stopped, listened. Crunch, crunch. He turned fully. The snowman was no longer in the yard. It stood on the sidewalk behind him, closer. No tracks between the yard and the sidewalk. No dragged marks, no footprints. Just smooth snow like a blank sheet. The boy's brain tried to fix it fast. Someone moved it. A prank. Older kids. But the street was empty, and the storm was violent enough to keep anyone sane indoors. The snowman stared. The coal eyes looked darker now, like the light had been swallowed. He backed up 1 step. The snowman leaned forward, not falling, leaning, like it had joints under the snow. It lifted 1 leg and sat it down with a wet crunch, a perfect step, then another. Slow, calm, like it knew exactly how fast he could run and wasn't worried. The boy ran. Running through deep snow felt like sprinting through water. He slipped, recovered, cut across yards, hopped a half-buried fence, nearly ate it on a drift. He didn't look back at first, and then the crunching found gaps in the wind. Crunch, crunch, crunch. He glanced over his shoulder. The snowman was following him. Upright, steady, not sinking like he was, not struggling. Its stick arms were wrong now, bent at angles wood didn't bend naturally. The coal mouth had widened, pieces missing as if the smile had been stretched too far. And then he realized something worse. It wasn't chasing like a person. It was closing distance like the storm itself had decided he belonged somewhere else. He turned toward the train tracks because open space felt safer than tight yards. That was the mistake. The embankment down to the tracks was slick with snow. He slid, landed hard, the cold instantly soaking into his clothes. He looked up. The snowman stood at the top of the embankment, like a silhouette cut out of white, and it just watched him. No hurry. And then it started down. It didn't slip. It didn't fall. It descended like gravity didn't apply the same way. The boy scrambled up the opposite side and ran along where the rails should be, but the storm had nearly filled them in. And then he noticed the second rule. The tracks weren't just a place. They were a line. A guiding line. He didn't know how he knew. He just felt it. The snowman followed on that line like it had done this before. Crunch, crunch. He tried to find the crossing sign, any landmark, but the world had turned into a tunnel of white, and something kept happening behind him that made his stomach turn. Every time he glanced back, the snow around the snowman looked smoother, as if the storm was cleaning up after it, as if the blizzard was erasing evidence of it moving, not covering it, editing it. A faint shape emerged through the snowfall, a railroad crossing sign, half buried and leaning. Relief hit him so hard it almost made him cry. The neighborhood was close. Home was close. He ran toward it. Behind him, the crunching did not speed up. It didn't need to. He made the turn off the tracks into the streets he recognized, toward his porch light like a lighthouse. He reached the back door, fumbled the knob, threw himself inside, slammed it shut, locked it. He pressed his back to the door, shaking so hard his teeth clanked. His parents came down, confused, angry, and sleepy. Words spilled out of him in gasps. Snowman. Tracks. It moved. It followed. His dad stared like he was hearing a kid describe a dream. His mom looked furious, mostly because fear comes out sideways in adults. They checked outside. The porch light shone on swirling snow. Nothing. His mom said, "There's nothing out there." His dad said, "It's a blizzard. You scared yourself." The boy wanted to scream. But the worst part wasn't that they didn't believe him. The worst part was that he wasn't sure how to prove it, because he could already feel the storm trying to erase the story. They sent him upstairs. He sat in his bed fully dressed, not trusting sleep. The wind howled. The house creaked. Then, under everything, crunch, right outside his window. He sat up, held his breath. Crunch. Closer. He reached for the curtain and pulled it back. A snowman stood beneath his window. Not lopsided, not unfinished. Taller, straighter. And its eyes were not coal anymore. 2 holes in the snow, deep enough that the darkness looked bottomless. It lifted a stick arm, slowly. Not waving like a cartoon, more like pointing at him. And then the window fogged from the outside, A spreading white breath, like something colder than air, had leaned close to the glass. The boy stumbled back. He didn't scream. He couldn't, because a thought landed in him like ice. If I make noise, it will know I'm still awake. He stayed silent until morning. Daylight made everything look normal. The snow glittered, the sky was pale, the neighborhood looked like a holiday card. He checked the yard under his window. Nothing. No snowman, no disturbed snow, no footprints, no coal, no sticks. He checked the neighbor's yard where the first snowman had been. Nothing. Not even the messy mound left over from building. It was as if the storm had gone back through the night and smoothed over every paragraph he'd lived. He tried telling friends. They laughed. He stopped trying. But he started noticing something new. Adults reacted strangely to storms. Not like, be careful. Like, don't tempt it. He overheard his mom on the phone with a neighbor. She laughed at first, but then her laughter broke, thin and nervous. She said quietly, "No, I didn't know that." Then, "Stop, don't tell me that." When she hung up, she locked the back door and checked it twice. She didn't look at him when she did it. Days later, his mom drove him to the store. Snow fell lightly. She sat in the parking lot without turning off the engine. Finally, she said, without looking at him, "You really saw something?" He swallowed. "Yes." Her grip tightened on the wheel. "When I was little," she whispered, "there was a storm. And my brother..." She stopped like the words tasted wrong. "We don't talk about it," she said. "We just don't." The boy's throat went dry. "What happened?" Her eyes shone, but she blinked it away hard. "Promise me you won't go to the tracks in winter." That was the first time he understood. This wasn't just his fear. This was town history. A rule passed around without being spoken, because speaking it gave it shape, and shape was dangerous. The next heavy snowfall, a snowman appeared on this block overnight. Different yard, different shape, always unfinished, always facing his house. Sometimes it had coal eyes, sometimes not. Sometimes it had stick arms, sometimes just stumps. Like it was trying different masks, like it was learning what frightened him most. If he looked away, if he ignored it, it stayed still. If he stared too long, he would blink and its posture would be slightly different. Not enough to prove, enough to know. And every morning after, it would be gone. No tracks, no proof. Just the feeling of being the only person holding the memory. One cold night later that winter, he woke up to silence. Not peace, held breath. From downstairs came a scrape, slow, heavy, like something being dragged across the porch. Then the sound of the doorknob turning, gently, testing, not angry, patient. The boy stood at the top of the stairs, frozen. A shadow filled the frosted glass of the front door. Tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks, like it was being polite. Like it knew the rules of houses and was offering the family a chance to pretend those rules mattered. The knob turned again, then stopped. The shadow drifted away from the porch light. In the morning, there were no footprints, but the doorknob was frosted over thick, crusted like it had been touched by something colder than the air. His dad stared at it a long time, then wiped it off and said, "Ice does that." But he wouldn't meet the boy's eyes. By 16, he was done being afraid. He decided he needed answers. So on the first heavy snowfall of that winter, not a blizzard, just steady, thick snow, he walked to the tracks. The rails were half covered, dark lines through white. On the tracks ahead stood a snowman, perfectly shaped, smooth, featureless. No coal, no sticks, no smile. Just the shape. He stopped. The air felt colder around it, as if the snow nearby had forgotten how to be normal. He took one step forward. The snowman tilted its head, like it had a neck, and then he heard a crunch behind him. He turned. Another snowman stood on the tracks behind him, smaller, rougher. And then another crunch. A third. Then another. Not built, carried. Appearing like the snowfall was stacking itself into bodies. He understood then. The first one wasn't multiplying because it needed help. It was multiplying because it wanted him to run in a direction it chose. The featureless snowman on the tracks stepped forward. And this time it didn't move slowly. It lunged. The boy ran. And behind him the crunching became many. A chorus. He burst into his house and locked the door, shaking so hard he couldn't speak. His parents were awake. His mom's face was tight with that half-annoyed worry. His dad stepped toward the window, ready to dismiss. Then he stopped. Because outside, through the soft snowfall, a tall white shape crossed the yard. Slow, direct, not wobbling like a person, not drifting like snow, walking. His mom covered her mouth. His dad's jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped. Tap, tap, tap. The knocking came again, patient, polite. No one moved. And then his dad said it finally, like he'd been holding the line his whole life. "We don't talk about it." The boy whispered, "What is it?" His dad stared at the door and answered, voice low, "It's winter." That wasn't a real answer, but it was the closest thing to truth the town allowed. Because the real truth was simpler and worse. Some things come with snow, and if you notice them, they notice you back. He left town when he could. He moved far away, built a life where winter was just weather. For a while, it worked. Then the first snow fell in his new city. He woke early, looked down at the clean white street and smiled. And then his smile died. Because on the sidewalk below, someone had built a snowman overnight. No scarf, no hat, no buttons. Just two deep holes for eyes, facing his building, facing his window, waiting. And then the streetlights glow. The snowman took one slow step forward. Not toward the door, toward the window, toward him. Like it never needed the tracks to find him. If this one got under your skin, tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Midnight Delight. And tonight, if you hear crunching outside your window, don't look back. Good night.